name wasn't shouted on the streets. It was whispered. In hidden corners of the internet, behind locked phones and encrypted messages, one name kept popping up like a ghost that wouldn't go away. Alex Mail. Just 32, but like he belonged in a UFC cage, not a courtroom. And wanted, not by just a few cops, but by almost every major police force in Britain. Tattoos covering his body like armor. But Alex wasn't just an average street thug. He was the boss. The guy your dealer was getting his supply from. By mid-2020, Alex Mail had turned the southern half of England into a playground for his drug empire. Over 130 kilos of pure cocaine had been pushed across Weston-super-Mare, Bristol, Portsmouth, the Midlands. Even sleepy little towns like Trowbridge weren't safe. He had his hands in everything. Then the cops came knocking. They thought it was over. They caught him, bailed out, and then, poof, he was gone. Alex Mail disappeared with a passport for the next 4 years. He crossed borders with fake names, new IDs, and smug confidence. Like we watch in movies, he partied on beaches while the rest of the country locked down. He zipped through Marbella in a Porsche, drank champagne under the sun, and laughed in the face of the law. And if that wasn't bold enough, he even left taunts on his own wanted posters online. "You'll never find me." And then, the trap finally snapped shut. What came next was one of the most intense manhunts in recent British history. A high-speed, high-stakes chase across countries. Cops kicking in doors, multiple arrests, and finally, not a mansion, not a beach house, but a filthy, cockroach-infested jail cell thousands of miles away. This is the true story of Alex Mail, the drug kingpin who ran for years, lived like a ghost, laughed at the law, until the law laughed last. Before the world knew him as a fugitive, Alex Mail appeared to be just another face in the crowd. Born and raised in Weston-super-Mare, Mail's public persona was far from that of a hardened criminal. Alex Mail lived like any other guy, in a quiet seaside town called Weston-super-Mare. It's the kind of place known for fish and chips, beachfront arcades, and families on vacation, not international drug empires. But beneath that calm surface, Alex was running something big, something dangerous. From behind the scenes, he was the man making entire drug networks run smoothly across the south of England. He didn't just sell drugs, he supplied the ones who sold them. Cocaine, ketamine, the kind of drugs that fed street-level dealers from Dorset to Bristol, Wiltshire to Bridgewater. If it was hitting the streets in the southwest, there was a good chance it had passed through Alex Mail's invisible empire first. And while others took risks, stood on corners or ran from police cars, Alex kept his hands clean. He didn't touch the product. He didn't get his shoes dirty. Everything he did ran through layers of protection, secret phones, code names, trusted people. And it worked. For a while. He was known in the game as the Viking. He had 2 secret identities on the dark web, Original Dagger and Ragnar.com. His reputation was ruthless and powerful. He moved in kilos. His profits were counted in hundreds of thousands of pounds, sometimes in just one weekend. But the real secret to his success? A mysterious tech network called EncroChat. EncroChat was like the Fort Knox of drug communication. At least that's what the underworld believed. Custom phones with no traceable numbers, messages that deleted themselves, a closed network costing thousands just to join. For gangsters like Alex, it felt like a guaranteed cloak of invisibility. But that confidence became his biggest weakness. What he didn't know was that European police, led by French and Dutch teams, had cracked the system. They didn't just shut it down, they hacked it, cloned it, and for weeks they sat quietly, watching in real time as criminals across Europe unknowingly spilled every detail. Every drop-off, every payment, every threat, every deal. Nothing was private anymore. Back in the UK, police watching those hacked messages started connecting the dots. The Southwest Organised Crime Unit began piecing together a massive operation, and at the centre of this web was Alex Mail, casually chatting about kilos of cocaine like he was ordering dinner. He even sent pictures, literal photos of cocaine bricks complete with handwritten price tags, like it was a sale at the supermarket. Nobody expected what came next. Not the cops, not the courts, not even the people who'd been tracking him for years. Just when it looked like the law had finally cornered him, Alex Mail, the man behind one of Britain's biggest drug pipelines, did the unthinkable. He walked right out the door. In late 2020, delays in the court system gave him the golden ticket. He wasn't tagged, he wasn't locked down. There was no curfew, no serious watch. Just a simple bail release and a pending investigation. And once he tasted that little bit of freedom, Alex did exactly what anyone in his shoes would do. He disappeared. At first it was subtle, a couple of missed check-ins here and there. Then his phone went dark. No texts, no signal. By the time the police realized something was off and tried to tighten the leash, it was too late. He was already gone. Using backdoor contacts and the same kind of secret channels he used to move drugs, he smuggled himself out of the UK. A quiet, covert boat ride across the English Channel took him to the Netherlands. No drama, no alarms, just a ghost slipping through cracks. From there he bounced city to city like a tourist with no destination. Eindhoven, Marbella. He drifted through Europe's sunny playgrounds, blending into expat crowds and using fake documents that would make a spy jealous. To the public, he looked like any rich Brit on holiday, but behind the scenes, he was constantly on the move, switching names and stories like outfits. In Spain, his cover almost slipped. Pulled over for speeding in a Porsche Panamera, the police got a whiff of something fishy, but his forged license and passport were good enough to dodge suspicion. He was released, and once again gone before the ink was dry. He settled next in Portugal, specifically Vila Moura, a resort town dripping with luxury. But he wasn't hiding alone. He shared a flat with another fugitive from Britain's most wanted list. That man got arrested. Alex, though, he dipped again. Clean exit, no trail. Eventually his luck started to crack. In Istanbul, Turkey, border security noticed something odd. His fake passport didn't match the biometric data. Busted. He was detained on the spot and shipped back to Lisbon, Portugal. This time, authorities were sure they had him. British law enforcement was ready to drag him back in chains, but Alex was already 3 moves ahead. He said, "Sure, extradite me." It was a setup. See, in Portugal, there's a legal limit. You can't keep a suspect in custody more than 150 days while processing an extradition. And Alex had hired one of the slickest defense lawyers in Europe, Ricardo Alvarez Alrio. Known in Spain as the devil's lawyer, this guy specialized in getting the worst people out of the worst situations. He played the legal game like a pro, filing appeal, delaying court dates, running down the clock. Meanwhile, British authorities begged Portugal to hold him on passport fraud. But when day 150 hit, Portugal's Supreme Court had no choice. They let him go, with a condition: check in at a local police station. Alex walked out of court that day grinning. No cuffs, no chase. He even stopped to pose for a photo, the kind you take after winning a lawsuit, not escaping a manhunt. Then he treated himself to a fancy lunch in Lisbon, as if to celebrate outwitting an entire nation. Within a week, he vanished again. But this time, he wasn't just skipping countries, he was jumping continents. With help from Russian criminals who specialized in moving ghosts across borders, Alex was smuggled over the Strait of Gibraltar. In the dead of night, he landed in Morocco, a place known for sunshine, palm trees, and the kind of deep corruption that could protect a man like him for a very long time. He thought he'd found paradise, but fate had one more trick waiting. Because by 2023, Alex Mail had become a legend among fugitives. His mugshot had crossed borders, landing on desks in Interpol offices, pinned on bulletin boards across Europe, and quietly mentioned in backroom strategy meetings from London to Lisbon. Every time the authorities thought they had him, he vanished like smoke. But this time, he chose to reappear in a place few expected: Marrakesh, Morocco. Unlike the flashy cities he'd previously roamed, Marrakesh had become a low-profile hideout. He wasn't living in beach resorts or rolling luxury vehicles anymore. Instead, he tucked himself into a quiet, unremarkable neighborhood surrounded by dusty streets and worn-down buildings, a calculated decision to avoid attracting attention. But even in this toned-down lifestyle, he didn't give up all his old habits. He still carried a fake passport just in case things turned sideways. And strangely enough, his only companions were 3 stray kittens he had taken in, which added a bizarre softness to the hardened criminal's image. For a moment, it looked like Alex had finally found a crack in the world big enough to hide in. But what he didn't know was that the game had already shifted. While he settled into his Moroccan cover, law enforcement was quietly moving in. Moroccan intelligence agents had already started watching him. Just 2 weeks of silent surveillance. They followed him from a distance, logging his daily routines, pinpointing his location, and compiling everything they needed. This was no local operation either. Back in the UK, the National Crime Agency had been quietly feeding Morocco intel behind the curtain. The 2 sides were coordinating, preparing to strike when the timing was perfect. And that moment came on January 21st, 2023. There was no action movie takedown, just precision. Moroccan officers moved in like shadows and cornered Alex without a single scene. He didn't run, he didn't resist. It was over in seconds. From there, he was transferred directly to Tiflet Prison, one of the toughest and most secure facilities in the country, a place designed to break spirits and bury escape plans. After years of dancing through different countries and identities, Alex Mail finally found himself back where it all began, inside a courtroom in Exeter. The same city where his drug network once quietly thrived was now hosting the last chapter of his long-running escape. Inside those courtroom walls, prosecutors peeled back the curtain on just how deep his operations went. Between March and June 2020 alone, Mail had moved over 130 kilograms of cocaine, not the cheap cut-up stuff either. This was a high-purity product worth more than £4 million on the streets. On top of that, he'd bought ketamine in massive batches, including one recorded deal for £26,600. The cash flow was amazing. Investigators found records showing he once picked up £600,000 in a single day. This wasn't a street dealer stacking bills in a shoebox. This was an organized business, one that ran with military-like precision. Devices, ledgers, messages, everything seized lined up with witness statements and digital evidence, each piece sharpening the full picture. In one intercepted message, Mail arranged a deal for £37,500 worth of coke, casually attaching a photo of a solid brick. The reply? Looks banging. It wasn't just a transaction, it was an ego flex, proof of how confidently he operated in this world. As the prosecution laid out his escape across Europe and North Africa, they detailed his use of forged passports, multiple fake names, and the quiet life he led while the manhunt closed in. Every move was planned, every disguise calculated, but it couldn't hold forever. His lawyers didn't argue with the evidence. Mayo entered guilty pleas for conspiracy to supply cocaine and ketamine, along with laundering criminal profits. The firearms charges weren't pursued in the end, not because he was clean on that front, but because the drug case was already watertight. The judge didn't mince words. He made it clear that Mayo wasn't some street pusher trying to survive. He was the brain behind it all, a man who supplied other suppliers, ran logistics like clockwork, and managed the kind of money that rivaled some legal businesses. His partners in crime had already been sentenced, their time behind bars collectively adding up to over 56 years. Now, on December 2nd, 2023, it was Mayo's turn. The gavel came down. 18 years in prison. No more aliases, no more planes or passports, just a prison cell waiting. In the end, the game caught up to him, and this time, there were no doors left open. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.